In the academic year of 2007 through 2008, I attended graduate school in Scotland. One spring day, my friend Jane was able to wheedle her in-laws' car from them, and she, our friend Mary, and I drove to the Scottish countryside. It was a wonderful day with perfect weather for the whole trip. We drove into the Highlands and stopped at random scenic places to be silly, frolic, and sing songs. In the early evening, we stopped at the Killarely Standing Stones. I'd never been to the Standing Stones before, and we all admitted that there were strange vibes around that place. I felt tense, and my chest was tight. I can only explain it as an ethereal experience, but an unfamiliar and foreign one, as if you were viewing a religious ritual that you've never heard of or seen before and didn't know what to make of it. I didn't feel normal until we got to Loch Skeen. There's a pathway that starts between two gatehouses and goes around the lake. We walked down there quite a ways through clouds of midges and mosquitoes. As we continued down the path, it got very wooded and dark, but further on the bugs disappeared. Eventually the woods cleared a bit. I wanted to keep walking because I could see something ahead of us on the path. I couldn't tell what it was. A building? A ruin? I wanted to see it, but as we walked on, whatever it was didn't seem to be getting any closer. Suddenly, Jane and Mary said they wanted to turn around and go back the way we came. But I wanted to continue walking so I could see what was further down the path. I had to see it. I needed to see it. In that moment, seeing what was down that path seemed to be my reason for being there. I was walking between Jane and Mary, and they each grabbed one of my arms and turned me around. I didn't fight them. And I suddenly forgot my intense desire to see what was down the path. I wasn't freaked out, just kind of bemused and a little giggly, as if I'd had one too many drinks at the pub. I asked them if it was getting too fey for them, and Jane said yes. They didn't say much after that. Jane and Mary rushed me onwards, and once we passed the gatehouses, they said they'd begun to feel better. I was still feeling a bit drunk. Both of them mentioned that it felt like we were being followed, and that whatever was following us, they could see out of the corner of their eyes. But when they looked behind them, nothing was there. I had no feeling of being followed. Mary is our resident otherworldly vibes lady, being descended from a Welsh white witch, and she was feeling hostile vibes from the Loch Skeen area. Jane is a practical person, and she said she's not really affected by such things, but she was that evening. Afterwards, I thought it odd that I, a person who likes ghost stories and things of the supernatural, didn't feel much but inebriated. Later, once I quote-unquote sobered up, I remember that while we were walking that evening, it seemed to me that the stumps and branches of the trees had taken on shapes and images in the twilight. At one point, while heading back to the car, I thought I saw something that looked like a fawn or pan. But it didn't frighten me. It seemed to encourage my inebriated-like state. Maybe I was the most sensitive to whatever was on the path and in those woods, I don't know, but I don't know what to make of it. I never told Jane or Mary about what I saw. So, one night in June of 2016, about a week before the summer solstice, my dad wanted to have a fire outside. Dad already had the fire going, so I just sat down in my camp chair and enjoyed the warmth and the glow. It was a comfortable temperature that night, not too cool, but I felt kind of shaky. After about 10 minutes of staring at the flames in silence, I didn't feel like talking, and neither did my dad, I guess. I started staring at the tree line that acted as a fence between our yard and the road. That was when I noticed that the night was dark, like unusually dark. And no matter how bright the fire got, the light didn't seem to reach beyond the patio. I was starting to get a bit creeped out. I glanced around the yard and kept thinking that I saw something, like shadows moving out of the corner of my eye. But there was nothing there. Nothing I could see, anyway. That was when I noticed how quiet it was. I couldn't hear crickets chirping or other night sounds. I could faintly hear traffic in town about 3 miles away, but it sounded muffled somehow. That's the best way I could describe it. Muffled. As I started paying closer attention to my surroundings, I noticed not only was it unusually dark and eerily quiet, but also there were no mosquitoes. None. Usually they try to fly in my ear or up my nose, but that night not a single insect bothered me. It was weird. It was close to 11 o'clock at night in the middle of June. There should have been crickets and mosquitoes. Yet I heard and felt nothing. Then, after a few minutes, I started seeing what I thought were little orbs of light. Now, we do have fireflies in the spring and early summer here, but these weren't fireflies. I know this because they were different colors. Some of them were green, some of them were white, some were pink, purple, and blue. Very few of them were the usual yellow of a firefly's light. The weirdest part about the lights is I still don't know if they were there or not. You know how with fireflies, you see them out of the corner of your eye and you know it's a firefly. You see the little yellow light and think, oh, a firefly, before straining your eyes to see the light again. And you usually see the firefly light up again when you pay attention to it. But with these lights, it didn't matter how much attention I paid them. I never saw the same one light up. These were like, they orbed once and then they were gone. I then became obsessed with the lights, trying to spot them when they lit up. But every time I saw one out of the corner of my eye, no matter how fast I turned to look at them, I never saw them straight on. I even pointed them out to Dad, who said he couldn't see them at all. It caused me to doubt my eyesight and my sanity. Were my eyes making up the little colored orbs? In the end, I never got an explanation. It was a weird night. I've had other fairy experiences around my house and property that can't be explained either. I've heard little giggles and had things go missing and turn up in unexpected places. We have mushrooms that grow in our yard all year round in circular rings and often out in direct sunlight. I thought mushrooms only grew under trees where it was dark and moist. Nope. We could have a dry brown patch of grass sitting out in the sweltering summer sun with a multitude of mushrooms growing there. And growing well, not mushy and sickly looking. It defies nature, literally. I've also had 3 clusters of violets pop up seemingly overnight in our garden for 3 years in a row. And I've heard 3 is a fairy number. I've heard the soft tinkling of little chimes out in the garden from inside the house. I've had 2 4-leaf clovers dried flat in a paper towel appear out of nowhere in a random book I've never read. It's all very odd, but I welcome the fairies in my home and life for good or for worse. That night, though, I had a very eerie feeling. Not scary, not frightening, not even creepy so much, just really on edge and eerie. That's the only word I can use to describe it. I constantly felt like something was going to happen, but nothing ever did. Maybe nothing ever will, or maybe. This is a distant memory I have. I was about 4. It was late at night and I was in bed. My mom was asleep along with the rest of my family, and the dogs too, apart from the Alsatian Sadie. I lay there propped up as I had a cold at the time and looked at the clock. I remember it had frozen at 3:41 a.m. At the same time, a small figure fluttered its way onto my hand, which I had arched up like a landing post. The creature just sat there, occasionally blinking as the sounds of bells and triangles played. I guess it was a language. When I spoke, I found myself talking in the same way. The creature said something like, "Watch where you put your foot next time. You nearly squashed me. That animal of yours, too." I opened my mouth. I thought I was talking English, but I clearly wasn't, as the creature understood me fairly well. I said, "What a weird creature you are." I guess the creature got offended by this because its face went all long. It didn't look amused. The jingling noise happened faster again, faster and more fuming. "Creature," it said, "I am Ting Ting." I was shocked, but didn't feel scared or threatened. We didn't have much of a conversation after that, and eventually she just fluttered away. I was very young, and I'm not sure if I was dreaming at the time, but whenever I think back on the memory, it feels like it's something real. And in retrospect, I believe on that night, I met a fairy. A few years back, my family and I moved to the middle of nowhere, Kansas, in a really big old house. I'm from California, and we never lived in any house nearly as old or big as this one. After living there for a while, the wife of the pastor at our church gave me an old sewing machine. It had belonged to her grandmother, and she knew she would never use it, so she offered it to me. I'm a cosplayer, so I gladly took it. During the winter, I was preparing for a convention a month or 2 away, and I would be up late every night sewing. I was homeschooled, so it was normal for me to stay up sewing until 11 or 12 and leave all my supplies on the dining room table to start back up in the morning. One day, I woke up to get back to work and realized the sewing machine wasn't on the table where I'd left it. All of my fabric and other supplies were there, but the machine was gone. I searched everywhere, and it finally turned up in a closet on the other side of the house. It was put away back into its machine bag with all of the cords neatly folded back up. But inside the bag with it were a bunch of small paint cans. This was really weird because these paint cans came from the garage, which was unattached to the house. I questioned my mom and brothers, but everyone claimed that they hadn't touched it and no one knew how the machine got there. Eventually, I shrugged it off and got back to work. Once again, I sewed late into the night and left everything on the table. The next day, the same thing. The machine was once again tucked away in the closet with all of the little cans of paint. It was odd enough that someone was getting up in the night to put away the sewing machine, but in order to get these cans of paint, they would need to go outside into the garage and dig them out during the winter, when overnight in Kansas is usually around -9 degrees. I couldn't make any sense of it. No one in the house admitted to doing it, and I really couldn't blame them. This was going a bit out of the way just to mess around with me. It would be a bit inconvenient. This happened every night from then on, that I would leave that machine out. Eventually, the convention came and I didn't sew for a while. I bought a new machine as me and my brothers just chalked this whole thing up to that one being haunted. And I never touched it again. Looking back, I still remember the last time I saw it. It was tucked away in that same closet. If fairies are creatures that like to do small things just to mess with people, then looking back on it now, that seems the most likely explanation. Maybe one day when I gather up the courage, I'll take out that sewing machine again. But not anytime soon. I was always considered odd, which wasn't too strange because I came from a family of odd people. I've never really fit in with most people and tend to see things in ways most people have trouble understanding. Because of this, I have never had many, if any, actual friends. When I was a teenager, I spent most of my time either reading or exploring the large amounts of wild woods that grew all around the area. One day when I was 16, I was sitting under a tree listening to music on a portable CD player, and I heard something rustling around nearby. I pulled my headphones off and listened. I heard it again, and I said, "Hello?" to see if maybe another person had wandered into the area. It went quiet for a couple of heartbeats and a kind of static electricity feeling swept over me. Then a quiet voice said, "Hello, back." I looked over to my right where the voice had come from and saw a face peeking out from around a tree. It was a boy who looked to be about 10 or 12, and he looked almost normal except the greenish tint to his skin and the fact that he was very thin. Not starved thin, but he had the smallest frame I have ever seen on a living being. I was shocked. 1, no one ever came out that far, and 2, I was fairly sure he was not normal and doubted that he was even human. I had been raised on fairy stories, so that is where my mind went first, and I recalled the general rules I had been taught for interacting with them. Do not give them your name. Do not say thank you. Do not ask for their name. Do not follow them anywhere, and don't trust them. After the 3 seconds of all this rushing through my mind, I asked, "Why are you here?" He said that he was watching me. I asked why, and he told me he was curious. From there, I found out that he was very interested in the way we live, and he wanted to know what the CD player was. For the next 2 years, I spoke to the boy almost every time I went to that part of the woods, and we exchanged some stories about how we lived and how our lives were going. Sadly, though, someone bought those woods and decided to build a shopping center there, so he is gone now. But I often wonder where he is, and what might have happened if I had ever dared to break one of those fairy rules I had been taught when I was a kid. And what would have happened if I had broken the rule I was tempted to break the most? If I had followed him deeper into the woods. Thanks for watching, and special thanks to the subscribers who submitted their stories for this one. Not so scary this time, but definitely strange. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I haven't been around in a while. Sorry about that. I've really missed making these videos and reading all your comments and stories. I had a feeling April was going to be crazy busy for me, and it was. But things have calmed down a lot, so I'll have more time coming up to put out a lot more material, which I'm really excited about. So thanks for sticking around. I hope it was worth the wait. Please do keep sending me your true fairy encounter stories, and like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. And until next time, this has been a visit from your scary fairy godmother.